Hello, so excited. My name is Saru Jayaraman. I'm the co-founder and president of One Fair Wage, and I'm here with Senator Chris Murphy talking about the Living Wage for All Act with a floor of $25 an hour. And we are so grateful to you, Senator, so excited about this bill because it's been so many years in coming. I don't know if you remembered, but this is the 25th anniversary of 9/11. And this work for us started on 9/11 with the workers. I co-founded an organization with the workers from Windows on the World, the restaurant at the top of the World Trade Center, Tower One. On that morning, 73 restaurant workers died and thousands of workers lost their jobs. And out of that, like a phoenix rising out of the ashes, was born our organization, a restaurant workers organization that has grown over the last 25 years to now 300,000 restaurant workers, representing an industry of 14 million, the lowest paid workers in America, some of the hardest working, who have been clamoring all that time, telling us we need higher wages. And so we've been fighting to raise the minimum wage, to end various sub-minimum wages, including the ending the sub-minimum wage for tipped workers. But this last year in particular, it's exploded because of the affordability crisis. Everyone, everywhere, this is all they want to talk about is wages that meet the cost of living. And it is more than an affordability crisis. It is truly intertwined with a crisis of democracy. And I know you know that well and have written about it. So we've got Living Wage for All campaigns moving in 9 states, including where I'm sitting right now here in Oakland, California, is moving $30. 25 is moving in Alaska and Michigan and Pennsylvania and Maryland and DC, 27 in Illinois, 30 in New York. This is blowing up, and we're so grateful to you for introducing the Senate bill that will be the capstone to this growing national movement. Tell us why you think it's important right now.
Well, I mean, let me just say first how grateful I am to you and to the coalition members. It is already a national movement. You have described, what people need and want, which is a wage that allows them to lead a dignified life. And well, a lot of this momentum will come early on at the local level and at the state level. Ultimately, we need a federal living wage. And that's what this is really about. Not to say that any increase in the minimum wage wouldn't be helpful to people, but there is no reason in the most affluent, most powerful country in the world that we shouldn't have a minimum wage that is a living wage. And what does that mean? That means that if people go to work, they play by the rules. They're working 40 hours a week. They should be able to earn enough money to be able to pay their bills, to lead a dignified life, to save a little bit of money for retirement or for a vacation. And that's what a $25 minimum wage will get you. Now, that's the bare minimum. But it's time that we just say, in an economy where we now have our first trillionaire, that it is not too much to ask for our economy to have an obligation to our workers, to our workforce, to make sure that when they go to work, they can pay their bills. So I'm excited to launch this bill with a handful of co-sponsors. I think that it's going to very quickly become a mainstream idea because it's not a radical idea. We are not asking for the moon. You put together your budget and even if you skimp and save, you cut out all luxuries and excesses, a $25 per hour rate barely gets you to the point where you can afford everything you want, especially in a high cost state like Connecticut or a high cost city like San Francisco or Oakland. So I'm just excited for our partnership. I think there's going to be a lot of support very quickly for this legislation.
Agreed. And as I'm sure you know have read a lot about, this was the idea of minimum wage to begin with. FDR, when he launched the idea of a federal minimum wage, said it's the least any worker should earn to meet the cost of living. And here we are in a moment, 25 is the least you need, and half of the country, Senator, doesn't earn it. Half of the country does not earn enough to meet the cost of living, which leads me to my next question, which is that we have heard from so many of our members, you want me to come out to a rally on Saturday to save democracy. Well, I work 3 jobs. What has democracy done for me lately? And so we're feeling real urgency to demonstrate something that democracy can deliver for them. What would you say to them?
I mean, you're just singing my tune, right? Which is that we are not proposing solutions that are big enough for the problems that people face. And so, of course, people are thinking of giving up on democracy because this democracy has intentionally rigged the economy to
That's right.
benefit the very, very wealthy. I mean, here's the deal. Today, yes, half of workers don't make a living wage. There are tens and tens of millions of workers who go to work every day and make a $8 wage, a $12 wage. They cannot pay their bills, but they're still asked to pay taxes, and they
That's
do
right.
pay their taxes. Meanwhile, we just found out that the 88 of the biggest companies in the country, this is CVS, this is Halliburton, this is Disney, this is Tesla, paid zero income taxes last year. And so we've set up an economy with this rigged that lets the billionaire class and the corporate class get out of paying taxes, but it asks poor folks and middle class folks to pay taxes. And so what we're doing here is a first but important step in unrigging the economy. Just saying that you should earn a living wage that allows you to pay your bills. And by the way, we didn't pick this number out of thin air.
That's
Yes,
right.
it is the minimum amount of money you need to, in most states, to be able to keep up with expenses. But as you know, it is also what the minimum wage would be today
That's right.
if the minimum wage had just kept up with the increasing productivity of workers. What
That's
has
right.
happened over the last 50 years is that workers have become more and more and more productive. And the corporate class, the billionaire class, has just gobbled up all of the money that is gained by that increased productivity. And the minimum wage has stayed down here. So if the minimum wage has gone up at the same rate that worker productivity had gone up, it would be $25 today. So we
Nice.
didn't pick this number out of thin air. We're not being greedy. This number is rooted in sound economic analysis.
It's funny, one of our partners in the coalition, Policy Link, the founder, Angela Glover Blackwell, had a beautiful quote. She said, "The only people who think $25 is too much are people who earn a lot more than that." People who earn less know that you can't survive without this. Um, but what would you say to folks that are worried about small businesses? We've got a ton of small businesses in our coalition. We have talked about a longer phase in for small business to get there. What would you say, Senator, to folks who say we can't do it, it's too much? What about small business?
Yeah, so I understand that this sounds like a bit of a leap of faith for small businesses who right now, can't figure out how to pay their employees $25 an hour and make the books work. But community after community went through this when they jumped to $15 an hour or $17 an hour. And we have loads of empirical evidence. One of the studies I know the best is from Seattle, which made a really big jump in their minimum wage. And the theory, the economic theory, was pretty simple that when everybody in the community is making a lot more money, then there are a lot more people to spend money in the consumer economy. And so the way that you as a small business pay a higher minimum wage is by having more revenue. And
That's
when
right.
everybody in the community has more disposable income, you have more customers. There are more people sitting at your seats if you're a restaurant owner. And all of a sudden, the minimum wage, yeah, it goes up. You have to pay more, but your revenue goes up. And, it's also important to note that, we're thoughtful in how we construct this bill. We don't go from $7 an hour nationally to 25 overnight. We pace the bill so that it's implemented over time, and we ask big corporations to get there faster than small businesses. So under this bill, small businesses have a longer schedule, a more gradual yearly increase until they get to 25, and the big companies that can absolutely afford it right off the bat have to get there quicker. So we've really incorporated a lot of the concerns of small businesses when we've designed this bill.
Couldn't agree more. Well, here's something you mentioned. Last night was a big night for a lot of places, in particular New York, where there were primaries, where there were huge upsets, surprise upsets. And we're seeing over and over and over again this past year in elections, voters want to see candidates be bold, stand up in bold ways for working people, not, take a middle of the road or rolling over to corporations kind of approach. So what would you say to the party, to Democrats, and to voters who are frankly disgusted with both parties, Senator? I have to be honest. Um,
Yeah.
what would you say is going to be our future of politics on issues like this?
Well, I mean, it goes back to your question about, what can you do to get people to participate again in politics? And the answer is be bold, right? Confront the abuse, the corruption that exists in our economy today. This is an economy that is rigged so that the very small number of people at the top get to essentially gobble up all of the winnings in the economy. And what we're asking for here is to more broadly distribute the enormous amounts of money that are coming into our economy and not just consolidate those resources in the hands of the folks at the very tippy top. And so again, like I said at the beginning, I'm for any increase in a minimum wage, but there are a lot of people out there that are just tuned out to a politics of incrementalism.
That's
They
right.
know that these big corporations can afford to pay a $25 minimum wage. There's no reason why we can't do that immediately. And they're drawn to candidates that recognize that. So yeah, people turned out for candidates yesterday in New York that are for some big, aggressive, immediate reforms in our economy that immediately allow people to lead dignified lives, that does something immediately about the affordability crisis. And this is something that we can do very quickly because these big billion-dollar corporations that are making massive profits, that are paying their CEO on average 900 times what they pay their average worker, they can afford to pay a higher minimum wage. And so this is a big solution. It is a relatively immediate solution. And I think it responds to what voters are saying in places like New York.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to ask you one more thing, talk to you about one more piece, which is really inspiring and moving to me. So we've been going around the country with this Living Wage for All campaign, and some young people, high school students in Nome, Alaska, heard me speak and decided to file a petition for a $25 ballot initiative in Nome, Alaska. They're currently collecting signatures. They're going to be on the November ballot with $25. And it just reflects, Senator, young people in particular have told me all over, this is the only issue I can focus on right now. I can't get involved in climate or reproductive rights or democracy because I don't see a future without being able to earn enough to make ends meet. So what would you say to young people in particular to hopefully get them engaged on this issue and feel some hope about what we can accomplish together?
Yeah, I mean, a couple things. One, there's no great social change movement in this country that has succeeded without young people being at the forefront. Right? That's just a truism of American politics. And so I want young people to be at the forefront of the movement to get a $25 minimum wage. Second, that feeling that they're articulating is universal. There's something in social science called the scarcity mindset. And when you don't have enough food to eat, when you can't pay your bills, you don't have the bandwidth to focus on anything else. And we want to live in a country that's a generous nation where you are not scrounging and scraping for resources every day, that you make enough money so that you can engage in selflessness, that you can engage in efforts to help your community on your leisure time. That's a wonderful, loving community to live in, but it's not available when half the nation doesn't even have enough money saved up in the bank to pay for an emergency car
That's
repair.
right.
And so we build a healthier nation when people don't wake up every day worrying about whether they can pay their bills. What they will do with that free time is give back to their
That's
community.
right. That's
And
right.
and and so I just think a $25 minimum wage unlocks American generosity, unlocks patriotism again. And so if you're going to work on one thing, this isn't a bad issue to work on. So kudos to those kids out in Nome,
Yeah.
and hopefully there's more like them that are going to join this effort. You've made it easy for people to join because you and your coalition partners are helping to build ground up initiatives. My effort, right, is a national initiative, but we'll meet in the middle, right? I'll build a national campaign with people here in Congress. You all and kids all across the country will build a grassroots up campaign. And when we meet in the middle, that's the day we'll be successful.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. We're so inspired. Looking forward to being with you tomorrow as we introduce this bill. Thank you for all you do. Appreciate it.
It'll be a great day. Great to see you.
Thank you.